This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and an extra month free at nordvpn.com/KingK using the code KingK. Stay tuned for more details. You know, it's funny to admit this, but for a long time I was hesitant to pick up the controller and play Pikmin. You might even say I was afraid of it. Now, I don't want you to take that the wrong way. I wasn't quivering in my boots at the sight of the box, no. It was more of a reserved distance I kept from it, an inclination towards avoidance. From the outside looking in, I was always really confused by the premise. You control a spaceman throwing colorful little plant creatures into battle. You grow them from the corpses of the enemies you kill and lose them in battle. Having watched several people play it and lose dozens of them all at once, it really put me off. I'm far from a natural-born leader. I'm an introvert, I'm socially awkward, and have only recently been slowly chipping away at my outer shell. I like to think I've come a long way since I was a kid, but no matter how much I work on that, I know deep down that I could never lead. Unfamiliar with strategy games as I am, I knew I'd somehow find a way to lose hundreds of them. I assumed Pikmin would be a struggle to keep them alive, a struggle to survive in a harsh world, a struggle to get back to safety. Was that a level of stress I wanted in my life? Interactivity has been powerful enough to immerse me in so many different roles. Bloodborne's difficulty instilled a fear in me that most traditional horror games have failed to replicate. Super Metroid made me feel like a lone intruder on a hostile alien planet. Pretty much all the Metroid games made me feel that way. A Short Hike brought me back to a simpler time, where I didn't have to grapple with more adult issues and could just explore. Even the most rudimentary examples get a rise out of me in one way or another, and Pikmin's premise brought with it a set of expectations. Using this as an excuse, I avoided Pikmin for years. It wasn't that I lacked time or even opportunity, I simply lacked the courage to dive in. Funny then that, despite how punishing it can be on your mistakes, I found the strength to carry on at every turn. Because it turns out Pikmin is an oddly welcoming game. No matter my losses, I kept moving forward. What I found at the end of that tunnel wasn't solace or relief, it was comfort and satisfaction. Pikmin is built on the idea of survival through cooperation. A veritable symbiosis. Olimar and the player by proxy must survive on a hostile alien planet. In order to do so, you must cooperate with the creatures native to said planet. I did not know what to expect from that first playthrough. I knew a few basic things, that blues could swim, reds were immune to fire, and bum rushing was optimal. Really though, I was stepping into the thick of it blind, right next to Olimar. I stumbled my way into hazards like a child, rolling with the losses and learning as I went. I made a ton of mistakes, more than is perhaps reasonable. I accidentally threw a bomb rock into my entire squad, I fell victim to Wollywogs at almost every turn, and I ended up losing over 400 Pikmin. Though I got every shit part back in 22 days, there was a tinge of dissatisfaction. Several of those days were marred by mistakes I knew I could rectify, even if many of them were small. There were a few days I just couldn't get that shit part back in time, or days where I just opened the way to the boss, but didn't have time left to fight it. So, after I finished that initial run, I booted the game back up and corrected some of those mistakes. In their place, I made other mistakes, became better acquainted with the unique abilities of my Pikmin, and come the completion of my second playthrough, I was already raring to go for a third. My initial impression of the 30-day time limit was that it would be too suffocating. You're telling me that I'll get a game over if I can't get all my shit parts back in 30 days? Way to make me feel even more pressured and anxious. In actuality, the 30-day time limit might as well not even exist. Every area of Pikmin can be completed in one in-game day, or at least very close to it without glitches. You can cut a 22 to 25 day run down to a mere 6 days, and that is remarkable to me. When I first landed in the distant spring, I was clueless. I bumbled around, running into a host of new terrifying life forms I didn't understand, and tried my best not to lose all my dumb children. Wollywogs were especially brutal. I just couldn't seem to get the rhythm right, and my encounters with them all ended in disaster. The enemies in this area seem to intentionally absorb your time. I remember it took me at least a day to clear the area of all enemies, just so that I could scoop up the remaining ship parts without issue. What I failed to initially recognize is that not every enemy needs to be dealt with. Those Wollywogs I agonized over on my first playthrough have a very slow attack pattern that is easy to exploit via a distraction. If you want your Pikmin to carry back the gluon drive, you'll have to keep in mind that there's a Wollywog right next to the bridge. You could attempt to take it out beforehand, but why go through so much effort when you can just send Olimar, or another Pikmin, to momentarily distract it? It eats up a lot less time and resources than dedicating an entire squad to eliminating a single threat. These micro-decisions are integral to Pikmin's arcade-focused design, and it means that each level can be thoroughly optimized for one-day completion. You have to know the level inside and out, just as well as you have to know your Pikmin. Choices dot the landscape, whether you notice them or not. How many Pikmin are you going to use? Your limit is 100, and you have 3 different types, each with their own unique abilities. Blue Pikmin can travel through water and save other Pikmin who are drowning. Yellow Pikmin can be thrown extremely high and can carry bomb rocks. And red Pikmin are immune to fire and boast the highest attack power of all 3 types. So, you land in the Forest Navel. Assuming we are completing every area in one day, this means that you only have access to red and yellow Pikmin. You know the blue onion is right next to base, so you're faced with a variety of questions all at once. What are you going to do? You know that you shouldn't get too close to the 100 Pikmin cap, since you'll be growing blue Pikmin later in that day. There might be a few losses here and there, but can you factor those potential losses into your late game strategy? Should you shoot high and intentionally drown a few Pikmin later? Or is that too much of a risk since you'll need a certain amount for a later ship part? We'll shoot for 70 Pikmin to be safe. Now the question is, how many of each type will you draw out? Fire hazards are in abundance, so you'll probably want a majority of that number to be red. However, there are also bombable walls everywhere, each with varying degrees of health. Perhaps a 50-20 split would be best. You could take care of the bombable walls as you use your reds for other tasks, but what if you took out even less yellow Pikmin to have more reds on standby? Red carriers are incredibly valuable, what with the fiery blowhogs and fire geysers dotting the main path back to base for several different ship parts that you'll likely be carrying all at once. You won't have to send your captain to distract enemies if you have units that can take them back without supervision. If you take out less yellow Pikmin, you won't be able to bomb each wall as efficiently and may need to spend time gathering more bomb rocks. Additionally, Beady Longlegs, the boss of this area, is a lot easier to fight with the added throwing height afforded to yellow Pikmin. We'll decide that the extra travel time will be worth it in the end so that we don't have to constantly watch our Pikmin and settle on a 60-10 split. We'll have room for at least 30 Pikmin later on depending on what we decide to do. That's all squared away, so we're ready to begin, right? Well, there are even more questions to consider before venturing out into the level. What will we do first? There are a lot of options. You could go awaken the blue Pikmin right out of the gate, but that means your other units will have nothing to do in the meantime. There are a lot of ship parts, one very close to the base in fact, that require blue Pikmin. However, there are an equal amount of ship parts and obstacles that can be dealt with using your existing units. Many of those tasks can be done without direct supervision, such as breaking down walls, building bridges, or taking back ship parts. Other tasks require Olimar, such as the bombable walls, and many of those objectives are next to other objectives. So, when do you want to get the blues? Well, there are bomb rocks behind a bombable bridge right next to the gravity jumper. You may want to go there first, given that you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Start taking back a ship part and acquire bomb rocks for later use. Right next to this ship part though is the puff stool, which also houses a ship part. You have 70 Pikmin. 10 of those Pikmin will be carrying bomb rocks, 25 of them are necessary to carry the gravity jumper, and 30 of them are necessary to carry the Omega stabilizer. Another question is wrapped into this. You have a 5 Pikmin margin for error, and need to correctly allocate those resources in a timely manner. what do you decide? Do you want those extra 5 to accompany you to the Puffstool in case you lose some Pikmin in the fight? Or do you bring exactly 30 to fight the mini-boss, while leaving those extra 5 to carry back the gravity jumper a little faster? Or do you send those 5 to clear out one of the walls over the course of the day? This choice seems irrelevant at first. What's the difference between those 3 options? The difference lies in the vast gulf between my first and subsequent playthroughs. My first time through this area was a nightmare. I spent an entire day there scoping things out, crawling across the area, losing Pikmin to Wollywogs. I didn't even discover blue Pikmin, I just waffled around for a while. It's a miracle I managed to get even a few ship parts back. I remember there was one day where it felt like I had accomplished absolutely nothing, and it was the worst. I had wasted that whole day. Now I have a whole strategy for this area. I know what enemies are where, how to deal with the bosses, how to separate my squad. This is what you're being tested on when you're playing Pikmin. It's your ability to think ahead, sometimes on the fly, about how effectively you'll be using those resources. Finishing the Forest Navel in one in-game day not only feels extremely satisfying, you'll be firing on all cylinders that entire day. Not a moment will go by without you making a meaningful decision, and there's a certain kind of tension bred by that need to rush. As experienced RTS fans might notice, this is similar to how games like StarCraft are played at a high level. You have to be on top of your game, managing your tasks correctly, and working towards your strategy in real time. You have to think strategically both before and during each battle. Those games always seemed so intense and unapproachable. How could one possibly contend with so many clicks per minute? The ability to strategize on the fly seemed so alien to me, and under the gun of a timer no less. Yet, here I was doing exactly that in Pikmin. Maybe it isn't quite as moment-to-moment intense, but the same variables exist. Pre-game strategy, real-time execution, and a clock looming over your head to get you acting fast. Nintendo successfully captured the high stakes of a multiplayer RTS and translated them into a single-player experience. It made the unapproachable, well, approachable. What fascinated me, though, is that my initial fear of losing colorful creatures completely faded away. At first, I was devastated by even a single death. I tried my best to keep them all alive. Eventually, though, I just let the deaths roll off my shoulders. Whatever, right? I got a few hundred more in stock. I began to view them less as creatures and more as tools. Undoubtedly a maniacal thing to say, but it did help that I wasn't constantly mourning death at the hands of my own incompetence. Despite being the reason I was initially scared of playing the series and RTS games as a whole, they ultimately became the reason I was able to overcome that fear. Olimar can't do anything on his own. He can't collect his own ship parts, he can't destroy walls, and he certainly can't go toe-to-toe with hostile alien predators. That's why it's refreshing to know that these soldiers will have your back no matter how many of them you lose. They help you to escape, and you teach them how to fend for themselves. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, one that I will maintain for years to come. Lord knows I'm not going to be able to maintain that relationship on current hardware. Nintendo isn't interested in letting me play this bad boy, so I guess I'll have to take matters into my own hands. Braving the vast frontiers of the internet is challenging without security, so I use NordVPN to protect myself. There are thousands of servers in over 60 countries, none of your data will be logged, and the entire internet rests at your fingertips, region-free. You can use it to get past pesky region restrictions on your favorite streaming sites. We can break free of the bounds of boring bureaucratic red tape binding certain shows to certain regions, and all it takes is a download. Right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount using the link nordvpn.com/KingK and use the code KingK to get 1 additional month free. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. My name has been King K, and I hope you all have some well-deserved fun today.
Bye.